B. Burnaby, Vancouver-based real estate agent, and thanks very much for joining me here on Rapid Fire Real Estate, where I take you through half a dozen topics. Spend a couple of minutes on each, and you can take that intel out into the marketplace. And if you need more answers, you need more hand-holding, my contact is in the show notes. Easy peasy, you can reach me there. Okay, I want to give you the lay of the land, the agenda, 6 topics, a little more technical in nature today. The first is the spread between fixed and variable rates, especially now with the rate reductions we are seeing. Second, will these rate reductions result in a lot more buyers getting into a market and a buying frenzy? Third, quick observation on the pre-sale market, what I'm hearing from pre-sale realtors. Fourth is GST. If you are completing on a pre-sale and selling, just listen to this because GST is very complicated right now. I want to try to make it as simple as I can for you. 5, if you are selling a home, what should you do with renovations prior to selling? And 6, how I made Tenants $21,000 in a 7-minute conversation on the sidewalk there, just in Yaletown a couple of months ago, and I want to share that with you. Okay, first one I want to start with is with the Bank of Canada decreasing the rates, and we've had 3 in the last 4 months. We've more talk here online about variable rates being attractive. Hit the pause button on that. Variable rates are still, there's a spread between the fixed and the variable right now. And before making this video, I talked to a couple of mortgage brokers from 2 different banks, and I wanted to get their quick thoughts on this because they've got their finger on the pulse. And one of them said that the spread is significant. Fixed 2-3 years are around 4.5%, so 4.5%, give or take. And the variable is still hovering a little over 6%. So it's still not a contest there. And what the brokers are telling me, still a lot of buyers are opting for a short fixed term, 2-3 years, and then hoping to transition into a low variable at that time. So that's an update there. Number 2, with the rate cuts, are we going to see buyers rushing out into the market again because now all of a sudden holding costs are a lot cheaper? Not so fast. I don't think we're going to see that just yet. In a previous video, I talked about an example here. The analogy was the financial crisis of 2008. When that hit in the fall, September of 2008, yes, home sales slowed down even here in Vancouver, and it was next April, May that they started to pick up again. So we had 3 quarters of slow sales, and then after that, it picked back up. I think that's what you would find with these rate cuts, is that it's not going to have an immediate effect. We need to give time for market sentiment to come back, and it may be 3 quarters, 9 months before that's the case. And you know what? On that note, I thought that there's a comment that someone wrote on my recent video, which just encapsulated this beautifully. He wrote it better than I can say it. So I just want to read you what he wrote. This comes from Bob the Bob 647. And he writes, a lot of sellers expect that when rates fall, people will just be able to buy more real estate. But the issue is when they drop rates, it's because the economy is slowing. The current market isn't like 2008. Where there are bargains like Detroit homes for $10,000. Now it's like, this house in Coquitlam is $1.4 million now, down 5%. Not much of a bargain out there. So the lack of real deals, plus slowing economy, tenant-friendly BC NDP policies, it's not a compelling argument to invest in real estate when you can just put your money into the S&P 500. Up almost 100% in 5 years without the headaches of the government kneecapping your investment. He's really, with one stroke of the pen here or keyboard, he's kind of in one paragraph. He's hit it all on the head. And the key here is that investors have options. They have choices, and they can buy real estate. They can buy stocks individually. They can buy an index fund. Hey, sleep at night. And I think the key here is with the unfriendly policies from the provincial government, it has made real estate investment unattractive to a large extent. And I do think there's a lot of landlords that are getting out of it right now. And why not? Like, if you think about it, I mean, you could just put your money into an S&P index fund and let it roll. And you know what? Your index fund isn't going to call you at 10 o'clock at night and tell you that the plumbing is broken or is going to stop paying you rent. So, and it's certainly not going to levy you, $18,000 to fix a roof and put in new windows into the building. So there's a lot of costs and energy and psychic drain that can go with being a landlord. So you must provide an incentive to real estate investors, and we are not seeing that right now. And I thought his comment hit it perfectly. Okay, third thing to discuss, pre-sale update. I was in Coquitlam recently talking to a couple of representatives of a very large developer, and they gave me an update on the state of the pre-sale market. In a nutshell, it's slow. Another word might be dead. And for some of the reasons I just talked about, with there not being an incentive for buyers, especially real estate investors, to get into pre-sales at the moment. A lot of pre-sale projects, 30, 40, 50% of the buyers were real estate investors. And if that market isn't there, all of a sudden, developers can't sell the project. And if they can't sell the project, they can't get a loan from the bank, they can't build it. And you know what? All of a sudden, we don't see the problem today, but we see it 5 years from now. We look around at each other and say, oh my God, there's not enough inventory. Or, wow, look at rents for one bedrooms are over $3,000 a month, because there's not enough product on the market. And so this is something we're only going to live with the impact of today's government policies 5 years from now. That's when we're going to see the consequences of it. And just as a note, to give you some numbers here for the stats guys out there, a Vancouver Sun article said that 10 to 20%, the estimate was that roughly 10 to 20% of all the sales that's what we see in pre-sale. So we see 34,000 sales per annum on average. That's been the case in the last 10 years. If that's the case, so 3,400 to 6,800 pre-sale units per year are sold. Well, easy math there tells us in that next 4 years, there's 15,000 units that are not on the market, are not available to move in because they don't exist, because they were never built. So we'll have to see what the consequence of that will be if the pre-sale market stays as slow as it is for the next 3-4 years. Next, number 4, GST on pre-sales. Okay, I just wanted to touch, there's a lot of confusion with this. The CRA in some cases is upcharging GST twice. And so it's a very good idea to talk to your accountant, talk to your real estate lawyer. I have all my clients do this because some people are buying as individuals, others are buying in a numbered company, and it's just a case by case. But a general rule of thumb here is that if you bought a pre-sale at $800,000, you know that you'd pay $40,000 in GST. Let's say you were lucky enough to sell it at $900,000, so now there's a second GST applicable at $45K. And the reason for that is because you completed with the developer, you are now selling the unit without ever having moved into it, and CRA wants to charge GST on that again. In order not to have to pay it twice, you need to do two things according to one real estate lawyer and an accountant I talked to. One is you need to register for GST prior to closing, so that you don't have to remit it a second time. And you or your accountant will have to file a GST return within 30 days of the sale. So very important. talk to your accountant on that. If you do not do those things, you will have to pay $45,000 again. And in the following tax season next year, the spring of 2025, the government sends you back the money that you've paid the second time. Right? So if you paid $40,000 on the $800,000, you would have to pay again $45,000 on the $900,000, and then you'd get $40,000 minus the $5,000, which stays with the government because the government wants to collect the extra $5,000. That's the federal government, of course, CRA. Okay, talk to a tax accountant and a real estate lawyer on that. Number 5. We were out viewing properties recently, and we came across a one-bedroom downtown, renovated very distinctly. The whole place is tiled, and it's a bright white tile. It's not aging very nice, and the seller appears to did a renovation there. About 5-6 years ago. And I'm just looking at this place thinking, yeah, it's going to be hard for them to sell that because it's a very specific taste. A buyer moving in may want to renovate it. And, if you're having to jackhammer the tile off all throughout the apartment, that's not a lot of fun. The contractor going to charge you a little extra money. Some stratas don't like you jackhammering as well. So if you are thinking of listing your place for sale, one of the common questions I get asked is, should I renovate prior? No, don't do it. Your tastes are yours alone, and certainly a cheap renovation, it looks ugly. Buyers can tell. If you're going to renovate, I always say a simple cosmetic change is best, and really what that is a fresh coat of paint, if nothing else. If you're going to do a second thing, put in new appliances. If you have to do a third, change the floors and put in light colored flooring. Never go dark in condos because it makes this space look small and you want it to look big. So that's my advice. But in a rule of thumb, don't renovate. The time and the cost is not worth it. It's better just to reflect that in the listing price. Okay, and the 6th thing, this is how being open to learning can help, and open to new, just connecting with people in the course of our lives can do you so much good. Earlier this year, I think it was January, February, I took clients to view different properties downtown. We went into a listing where I briefly met the tenants, very nice couple from Toronto, and they had just signed a 1-year lease, and then the seller relists the property for sale. They had been selling it previously, then took it off the market. These tenants move in, and then they relist it for sale. I mean, this is a really unfair thing to do to any tenant, right? You don't do something like that. And, I had a quick discussion with the tenants when I bumped into them on the sidewalk there on, it was a Davie Street, I think, just across from the park in Yaletown. And we had this nice conversation, really nice couple. I like quality people. And I said, look, what you can do in your instance, I think you're really well within your right because of the hassle and the inconvenience and just the unfairness of what the owner there is doing to you. You're within your right to go and ask for some money, and you can ask them to let you out of your fixed term at a cost. And I said, name a high number. And he thought, well, maybe you could get several thousand. I said, shoot for the moon. Go for, just say 22,000 and something that's not a rounded number. And he did. And then he called me back, I think about 5 or 6 days later. It wasn't long. And he said, you know what? They agreed to it. Boom. So as I said, good for him. And so I think I made a friend there for life. But the point, he deserved it. They deserved it. I think what the seller there was doing was just absolute boneheaded, unless they were getting advice from a boneheaded property manager. And I don't know the specifics, the details on the other end. That may well have been the case. Maybe there was just a complete fool of a property manager on the other end of that. So in any event, as a tenant, I think if you're getting run over that way by your seller, I mean, that's one thing, one option that you could pursue. maybe a buyout. But if it's if you're at the stage where you're in a month-to-month tenancy, that's a different situation. And certainly, if you've had a really good landlord and he's kept the rent the same for the last couple of years, 3-4 years, that's a different situation. I mean, they're basically doing you a favor. In many cases, landlords may be subsidizing the rent and you don't even know it. And they might be subsidizing it by $500, $600, $700, $800 if they had a variable rate. So that's a different situation altogether, and I don't want you to confuse the two. Okay, those are just 6 thoughts, 6 little examples there. If leave your opinions, your comments in the show notes below. Thanks to all my new subscribers, and we'll see you next time.